أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. Verse number 257, the chapter Baqara. God is near unto those who have faith, taking them out of deep darkness into the light, whereas near unto those who are bent on denying the truth are the powers of evil that take them out of the light into darkness deep. It is they who are destined for the fire, therein to abide. God is close to those who believe and takes them out of deep darkness. Allah takes the believers into the light. He shows the true path to the believers. Whereas near unto those who are bent on denying the truth, who are inclined to deny the truth, are the powers of evil that take them out of the light into darkness deep. It is vice versa. There are two different ways, way for the paradise, way for the hell. It is they who are destined for the fire, who are directed for the fire. Fire is hell here. There to stay. They will stay in the fire. Verse number 258. ألم تر إلى الذي حاج إبراهيم في ربه أن آتاه الله الملك إذ قال إبراهيم ربي الذي يحيي ويميت قال أنا أحيي وأميت قال إبراهيم فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأت بها من المغرب فبهت الذي كفر والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. Are thou not aware of that king who argued with Abraham about his sustainer simply because God had granted him kingship? Lo, Abraham said, my sustainer is he who grants life and deals death. The king replied, I too grant life and deal death. Said Abraham, verily God causes the sun to rise in the east. Cause it then to rise in the west. Thereupon he who was bent on denying the truth remained dumbfounded. For God does not guide people who deliberately do wrong. Are you not aware of that king, we don't know his name in the Quran, Quran doesn't tell us his name, who argued with Abraham and about his sustainer, Rab, simply because God had granted, God had bestowed, given him kingship position of being a king. Lo, Abraham said, look, see, Abraham said, my sustainer is he who grants life, who gives life, and deals death, gives death. The king answered, I too grant life, I too give life and give death, like your God, he wants to say. Said Abraham, verily, indeed, God causes the sun to rise in the east. Cause it then to rise in the west. Do what Allah does, do the opposite. Abraham tells him. Thereupon he who was inclined to deny the truth remained astonished. He couldn't answer. For God does not guide, does not show the true path people who consciously, intentionally do wrong. Verse number 259. أو كالذي مر على قرية وهي خاوية على عروشها قال أنى يحيي هذه الله بعد موتها فأماته الله 100 عام ثم بعثه قال كم لبثت قال لبثت يوما أو بعض يوم قال بل لبثت 100 عام فانظر إلى طعامك وشرابك لم يتسنه وانظر إلى حمارك ولنجعلك آية للناس وانظر إلى العظام كيف ننشزها ثم نكسوها لحما فلما تبين له قال أعلم أن الله على كل شيء قدير. Oh, art thou, O man of the same mind, as he who passed by a town deserted by its people, with its roofs caved in, and said, how could God bring all this back to life after its death? Thereupon God caused him to be dead for 100 years, whereafter he brought him back and to life, and said, how long hast thou remained thus? He answered, I have remained thus a day or part of a day. Said God, nay, but thou hast remained thus for 100 years. But look at thy food and thy drink untouched. Is it by the passing of years? And look at thine ass. And we did all this so that we might make thee a symbol unto men. And look at the bones of animals and men, how we put them together and then clothe them with flesh. And when all this became clear to him, he said, I know now that God has the power to will anything. Oh, are you, O man of the same mind, as he who passed by a town, he went through a town, deserted, left, abandoned by its people. The people who live there left this town, with its roofs caved in, collapsed, and said, how could God bring all this back to life after its death? He thought, we don't know this man's name, Quran doesn't mention it. Immediately or shortly after that, God caused him to be dead. God killed him, and this person died for 100 years. After which he brought him back to life. He started to live again on earth and said, how long have you remained thus? Allah asks him. We don't know how Allah asks him. Is he a prophet or not? Maybe there was a prophet during that time, and Allah first informed this prophet, and he told verses of Allah to that person, or Allah sent some inspirations to his mind. He answered, I have remained thus a day or part of a day, really short time. I stayed in that position. Said God, nay, indeed, but you have remained thus for 100 years, very long time. But look at your food and they drink, your drink, untouched, unharmed. Is it by the passing of years? And look at your ass, thine belonging to you, your donkey. And we did all this so that we might make you a sign unto men. And look at the bones of animals and men, how we put them together and then dress them with physical nature, body. And when all this became clear to him, this person understood clearly. He said, I know now that God has the power to will anything. Whatever Allah wants, He does. No problem for Him. Sorry, I forgot to mention the explanation for the verse 258 and explanation number 251. According to Muhammed Abdu, this Quran exegete has got a Tafsir, Menar, its name. The wrong zulm referred to here consists in one's deliberately, once intentionally turning away from the light, from the true path of guidance provided, granted, given by God. And now explanations for 259 Quranic verse, and explanation number 252, literally, or like him. The words interpolated, introduced, given by me, by Muhammed Asad, between brackets, are based on Zamakhshari's interpretation of this passage, which connects with the opening of the preceding verse, a former verse. Brackets are a pair of written marks that you place around a word, expression, or sentence in order to indicate that you are giving extra information. In British English, curved marks like these are also called brackets, but in American English they are called parentheses. Explanation number 253. The story told in this verse is obviously, clearly a parable, a story meant to illustrate, to describe God's power to bring the dead back to life. And thus it is significantly placed between Abraham's verse in verse 258, my sustainer is he who grants life and deals death, gives death, and his subsequent, his following request in verse 260, to be shown how God resurrects, how God brings to life the dead. The speculations of some of the earlier commentators as to the identity, the fact of being who, of the man and the town mentioned in this story are without any substance. We don't know clearly who is that person and where is this person. We don't know, and may have been influenced by Talmudic legends. And there is some information. There is some information in Tafsirs, but they are based on Talmudic legends. Muhammed Asad says, Talmud, the collection of Jewish law and tradition consisting of the Mishnah and the Gemara. Gemara, what is Gemara? A rabbinical commentary on the Mishnah, forming the second part of the Talmud, and being either the edition produced in Palestine after the birth of Jesus, 4th century, or the larger, more important one produced in Babylonia after the birth of Jesus, 500, 5th century. Legends, a traditional story, sometimes popularly regarded as historical but unauthenticated. Explanation 254, and observe that it is alive, thus pointing out, showing that God has the power to grant life indefinitely for an unlimited or unspecified period, as well as to resurrect, bring to life the dead. Explanation 255. The Quran frequently often points to the ever-recurring miracle of birth. Ever-recurring happens again and again. Miracle of birth preceded, come before, by the gradual evaluation, slow development of the embryo, an unborn or unhatched offspring in the process of development in its mother's womb, uterus, as a visible sign of God's power to create and therefore also to recreate life. Verse number 260. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي قال فخذ 4 من الطير فصرهن إليك ثم اجعل على كل جبل على كل جبل منهن جزءا ثم ادعوهن يأتينك سعيا واعلم أن الله عزيز حكيم. And lo, Abraham said, O my sustainer, show me how thou givest life unto the dead. Said he, Hast thou then no faith? Abraham answered, Yeah, but let me see it, so that my heart may be set fully at rest. Said he, Take then 4 birds and teach them to obey thee. Then place them separately on every hill around thee. Then summon them, they will come flying to thee, and know that God is Almighty, wise. And look, see, Abraham said, O my sustainer, show me how you give life, how you resurrect unto the dead. Said Allah, Have you then no faith? Don't you believe? Abraham answered, Yeah, I believe, but let me see it. I want to see it, so that my heart may be set fully at rest. I want to believe you powerfully, emphatically. Said he, Take then 4 birds and teach them to obey you. Then place them separately on every hill around you. Then call them. They will come flying to you, and know that God is having complete power, omnipotent, and God is wise. Explanation 256. Literally, make them incline towards thee, Zamakhshari says, and Lane Dictionary. Explanation 257. My rendering of the above, my translation of the above parable story is based on the primary meaning, basic meaning of the imperative surhunne ileyk, make them incline towards thee, towards you, i.e. teach them to obey you. The moral of this story has been pointed out convincingly, persuasively by the famous commentators Abu Muslim, as quoted by Razi. Abu Muslim Isfahani. He died in 322. He lived in the period close to Taberi and Maturidi, and he doesn't accept Neskh. He is famous for his approach in Quranic sciences, and he was one of the Mutazili theologians, Abu Muslim al-Isfahani. If man is able, as he undoubtedly, certainly, is to train birds, teach birds in such a way as to make them obey his call, then it's obvious this bird is generally a pigeon. Then it's obvious that, clear that God, whose will all things obey, can call life into being by simply decreeing, by simply ordering be. Kun feyekun. Verse number 261. مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل في كل سنبلة 100 حبة والله يضاعف لمن يشاء والله واسع عليم. The parable of those who spend their possessions for the sake of God is that of a grain out of which grow 7 ears. In every ear 100 grains. For God grants manifold increase unto whom He wills, and God is infinite, all-knowing. The parable of those who spend their possessions, their belongings, for the sake of God, for Allah, for Allah's way, for Islam, is that of grain, wheat, or any other cultivated cereal crop used as food, out of which grow 7 ears. Ears, the seed-bearing head or spike of a cereal plant. in every ear 100 grains. For God grants, God bestows, gives, manifold, multiply, increase, unto whom He wills. And God is infinite, limitless, endless, all-knowing, He knows everything. Verse number 262. الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله ثم لا يتبعون ما أنفقوا منا ولا أذى لهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. They who spend their possessions for the sake of God and do not thereafter mar their spending by stressing their own benevolence and hurting the feelings of the needy shall have their reward with their sustainer, and no fear need they have, and neither shall they grieve. They who spend their belongings for the sake of God, for the way of Allah, and do not thereafter mar, harm, damage. They don't damage their spending by stressing their own benevolence, by drawing special attention. Their own benevolence, benevolence means kindness, and hurting the feelings of the needy poor people shall have their reward with their sustainer, and no fear need they have, they will not fear, and neither shall they grieve, they will not grieve. They will be happy. Verse number 263. قول معروف ومغفرة خير من صدقة يتبعها أذى والله غني حليم. A kind word and the wailing of another's want is better than a charitable deed followed by hurt, and God is self-sufficient for bearing. A kind word, good word, and the wailing, hiding of another's want, another one's need, is better than a charitable deed, followed by hurt, followed by pain, followed by upsetting a person. And God is self-sufficient for bearing, patient, hilm in Arabic language. Sorry, I have forgot to mention the explanation for the verse 262. Explanation number 258, literally, don't follow up, don't follow. Explanation number for the verse 263 and explanation number 259 for the rendering of maghfirah in Arabic, literally forgiveness. In this context, as wailing another's want, hiding another's need, I'm indebted to Baghawi. Baghawi's explanation for this verse. Who is Baghawi? Abu Muhammad al-Husayn ibn Mas'ud ibn Muhammad al-Farra al-Baghawi died according to Hijri calendar in 516, was a renowned famous Persian Muslim mufassir, hadith scholar, and a Shafi faqih, Islamic jurisprudence, fiqh. Best known for his major work, Tafsir al-Baghawi, Wikipedia says. Verse number 264. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى كالذي ينفق ماله رئاء الناس ولا يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فمثله كمثل صفان عليه تراب فأصابه وابل فتركه صلدا لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. O you who have attained to faith, do not deprive your charitable deeds of all worth by stressing your own benevolence and hurting the feelings of the needy, as does he who spends his wealth only to be seen and praised by men and believes not in God and the last day. For his parable is that of a smooth rock with a little earth upon it. Then a rainstorm smites it and leaves it hard and bare. Such as these shall have no gain whatever from all their good works. For God does not guide people who refuse to acknowledge the truth. O you believers, don't deprive your charitable deeds, charitable works, of all worth by stressing, by drawing special attention, your own benevolence, your own kindness, and hurting the feelings of the needy, of the poor people, as does he who spends his wealth, his richness, only to be seen and praised by men, and believes not in God. He doesn't believe in God and the last day, and he doesn't believe in the hereafter. For his parable, his story, is that of a smooth rock. A smooth rock, free from perceptible projections, lumps, or indentations. Rock with a little earth, with a little soil upon it. And then a rainstorm damages it. Smite means damage. Damages it and leaves it hard and bare, not covered. Such as these shall have no gain, no benefit whatever from all their good works, because of his showing off. He doesn't spend his money for the sake of Allah, but he wants to be admired by people. For God does not guide people. God doesn't show the true path to people who refuse to acknowledge the truth, who refuse to say openly the truth. Verse number 265. وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَتَثْبِيتًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ كمثل جنة بربوة أصابها وابل فآتت أكلها ضعفين فإن لم يصبها وابل فطل والله بما تعملون بصير. And the parable of those who spend their possessions out of longing to please God and out of their own inner certainty is that of a garden on high fertile ground. As rainstorm smites it, and thereupon it brings forth its fruit twofold. And if no rainstorm smites it, soft rain falls upon it, and God sees all that you do. And the parable of those who spend their belongings out of longing, out of wanting, wishing to please God for the sake of Allah, and out of their own inner certainty, they want to be true believers, is that of a garden on high, fertile, fruitful ground. A rainstorm smites it, a rainstorm damages it severely, and thereupon, immediately or shortly after that, it brings forth its fruit twofold, double. And if no rainstorm smites it, if no rainstorm damages it severely, soft rain falls upon it, and God sees all that you do. Allah will award you because of your good deeds. Verse number is 266. يود أحدكم أن تكون له جنة من نخيل وأعناب تجري من تحتها الأنهار له فيها من كل الثمرات وأصابه الكبر وله ذرية ضعفاء فأصابها إعصار فيه نار فاحترقت كذلك يبين الله لكم الآيات لعلكم تتفكرون. Would any of you like to have a garden of date palms and vines through which running waters flow and have all manner of fruit therein, and then be overtaken by old age with only weak children to look after him, and then see it smitten by a fiery whirlwind and utterly scorched. In this way, God makes clear his messages unto you so that you might take thought. Would any of you like to have a garden of date palms, date trees, and wine through which running waters? Wine is a plant that grows up or over things, especially one which produces grapes, and have all manner of fruit, all kinds of fruit there, and then be overtaken by old age with only weak children to look after him, and then see it smitten, see it damaged severely by a fury, by a violent whirlwind, tornado, and utterly scorched, utterly burned. In this way, God makes clear his messages unto you so that you might take thought, so that it will be useful for you. Verse number 267. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا من طيبات ما كسبتم ومما أخرجنا لكم من الأرض ولا تيمموا الخبيث منه تنفقون ولستم بآخذيه إلا أن تغمضوا فيه واعلموا أن الله غني حميد. O you who have attained to faith, spend on others out of the good things which you may have acquired, and out of that which we bring forth for you from the earth, and choose not for your spending the bad things which you yourselves would not accept without averting your eyes in disdain, and know that God is self-sufficient, ever to be praised. O you believers, spend your money on others, on other people, out of the good things which you may have acquired, which you may gained, and out of that which we bring forth for you from the earth. You gain something, and you will give some part of it to the needy people, but you should give the good ones, not the worst ones. And choose not for your spending the bad things which you yourselves would not accept without averting your eyes in disdain, in underestimation. And know that God is self-sufficient, ever to be praised. Verse number 268. الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء والله يعدكم مغفرة منه وفضلا والله واسع عليم. Granting wisdom unto Satan threatens you with the prospect of poverty and bids you to be niggardly, whereas God promises you his forgiveness and bounty, and God is infinite, all-knowing. Satan, in Arabic shaitan, threatens you with the prospect, with the possibility of poverty. He tells people that they will be needy, and bids offer you to be niggardly, to be stingy, whereas God promises you his forgiveness, his mercy, and bounty, generosity, and God is infinite, endless, all-knowing. He knows everything. Verse number 269. يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤت الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا وما يذكر إلا أولو الألباب. Granting wisdom unto whom he wills, and whoever is granted wisdom has indeed been granted wealth abundant. But none bears this in mind save those who are endowed with insight. Granting, giving, wisdom, reason, cleverness, smartness, unto whom He wills, unto whom Allah wills, and whoever is granted, whoever is given wisdom, has indeed really been granted wealth, richness, abundant, plentiful. But nobody keeps this in mind, save except those who are endowed, who are given with insight, with understanding, comprehension. Verse number 270. وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن نَّفَقَةٍ أَوْ نَذَرْتُم مِّن نَّذْرٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُهُ وَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِنْ أَنصَارٍ. For whatever you may spend on others, or whatever you may vow to spend, verily God knows it, and those who do wrong by withholding charity shall have none to succor them. For whatever you may spend on other people, or whatever you may swear to spend, verily, indeed, God knows it, and those who do wrong by grudging, refusing to give charity, shall have none to succor them, shall have none to help them.